Hello, welcome to the Business Spotlight podcast. I'm joined today by Alex Cheney, and Alex has recently set up a new business called the Succession Plan that is integrating AI technology into succession planning for businesses. But we're going to explore why and how he's done that. So, welcome to the call, Alex. And
Thanks, Kevin.
so, Alex, this is the new business. Tell us what you were doing beforehand, and then we'll explore how we went from one to the other.
Great, wonderful. Well, thanks for the invite, Kevin. So I've been in exec search now for just over 30 years, for the last 10 of which I've been running a talent intelligence business, which provided solutions to organizations. Succession planning was one of them. Talent intelligence and talent mapping was another big component of it. And I looked at kind of succession planning being the biggest challenge for all of our clients. And they found that the biggest challenge was ownership, who owned it. Do we have individuals from both internal and external to their organization on the succession plan? How do we keep it up to date? Who owns that succession planning component?
Yeah.
And so I thought, actually, we can probably digitize some of this. So I sort of set out, spent about a year thinking about how we can build a digitized solution for succession planning. And we launched, I have to say, sort of October last year, which has been great.
And we'll dig into that in a minute because that's a very interesting project that you've got going on there. But initially, in terms of the succession planning with the clients that you have worked with in the past, you've found that they've kind of been well planned in succession planning. It's something that's been kind of written into their strategy, their business planning, or is it something that you've had to encourage them to engage in, and you've helped them as that part of the process as well?
Yeah, interesting question. So I think probably the reality is 5 years ago, nobody really talked about succession planning. It was an area where some organizations did, and some of them did it well. Most people just played lip service to succession planning. And really what sort of struck me more recently, legislation changed in the financial market sector. Um, Back in 2023, the FCA decided that they wanted to review succession plans for key roles within the banking sector,
Okay.
but they had to see external talent as well as internal talent. So banks typically would provide them with the same three or four people that would be moving around to different various roles within the succession plans. But the FCA decided that that's going to stop now. They need to provide data from both internally and externally. So that kind of drove the change slightly.
Okay.
And I think we've seen a lot of organizations follow suit now. So I think a lot more organizations that are listed typically have the kind of agenda now, which is driven from the board
Yeah.
to say one of your KPIs is succession planning. And so it kind of has come to the forefront a bit more in the last 2 or 3 years, I would say.
Okay, so it's been very much, it sounds, that an FCA driven kind of initiative which organizations have had to deal with, to adapt to. So is that primarily where your clients are in the financial sector?
Well, no, and that's probably where I set out to
Okay.
start because I thought legislation might drive change
Elsewhere, yeah.
quicker in there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so that was the intention. Absolutely, that was the intention. But actually, we've got consumer electronics brands on. We've got insurance companies on the platform as well. So I think succession planning is probably was the purview of large organizations. It was something that those guys did. And now it's sort of trickled down, and it really is it's best practice now for organizations to do succession planning. Most still do it with internal professionals. They don't really look externally.
Yeah.
So, some of the key roles that perhaps, might be challenging or they need to kind of acquire new talent, they might look externally. But I think the large part of succession planning for most organizations has been just internal.
All right.
Um, it has changed somewhat now, and I think that's certainly the case now. People are looking externally to their own employees now to build these more robust succession plans.
Okay. So there seems to be a hunting and a farming element to your marketing work. You're putting yourselves out there as experts in the field, and we'll come to the platform in a minute, but you've got the tools available and people can come to you and discuss it. But
Yeah.
equally, possibly you've got an educational role in saying to people that succession planning is a really key, important
Mhm.
part of your strategic planning. Do you find you're involved in both sides of that exercise?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, also just sort of the full journey of succession planning as well, because whilst it is not just about putting some names on a piece of paper, it's also about, making sure that the people that you've got in your succession plans are going to be ready for that move, when the
Right.
time's right. So it's more not just about kind of the identification of those professionals. It's also about kind of how do you leverage
Okay.
a tool like ours to kind of, give them key milestones to get them to the place they need to get to as well. So it's a lot more, all encompassing than just sort of identification of the professionals now.
Okay. Right. Well, with the succession plan itself as a project,
Mhm.
so you launched that about you say about October last
Yep.
year. What
Mhm.
was your primary motivator for going down this route, and particularly with the AI integration?
Yeah, okay. It's really interesting actually because AI has come. So when I first thought about the platform, which was probably 2023, whilst AI was probably just really in its infancy, I didn't really sort of envisage using AI in the platform.
Mm.
What I wanted to create was an automated solution that would kind of do a lot of the work for the clients that we work with.
Yeah.
And AI didn't play a huge part in that journey initially. It's only really in the last, I guess, kind of year that AI has really sort of been embedded into what we do now. So we use AI across a number of different things. I mean, one of them is writing profiles on our, on the talent that we bring in, writing development plans for, for candidates in the background as well. So we didn't really set out to use AI in the beginning, but actually what we've seen in the last, well, and I guess more in the last 6 months, but in the last year, we've seen the ease of the LLMs. We've seen a lot more adoption now from people that we might talk to with AI and APIs. And so it's kind of a little bit more easier now for us to sort of talk about AI and what we do with it. And that's why it's kind of we've embedded a lot more in the last 6 months, but it certainly wasn't something we set out to do in 2023. It was something that has kind of more come to the fore in the last 6 months, 12 months.
Right. Okay. And how does the platform work as a business model? In terms of how you get paid, how you find your clients, etc. What's
Yeah. Okay. So it's a SaaS model. So it's a per license model. Some users just have one or two licenses. Some organizations have 20. The key element about our platform is it's used as a research tool as well. So organizations use it for not just succession planning, but also for talent pipelining as well. So
right?
our AI is quite unique in a sense that it goes out and searches for talent in the external market. It uses Google, it uses a number of other tools that, it brings back talent from externally. And
Okay.
so our clients are not just using it as sort of a succession planning or talent pooling, they're also using it as a recruitment tool as well.
That's
And
interesting.
so, yeah, and so what it does is it reduces the cost they have on it. So, our platform will allow you to kind of create talent pools of succession plans and it'll go off and it'll do the work for you without having too much
Will it
involvement.
do the initial sorts of contacts with the prospects that it finds as well, or does that fall back in house once it's done that
It falls back in house,
conversation?
yeah. And the reason we haven't done it like this is because we're very clever with our AI in a sense we don't let over any data, and that's been the biggest issue when you talk about clients is they don't want AI to touch any of their data. So we don't have AI over any of our data.
Okay.
So we're kind of really aligned with GDPR. So we don't have a platform which is kind of a full outreach platform because we want to
Yeah.
sort of fit in line with GDPR. But I have to say that it's been something that people have been requesting for us, and
Yeah.
we're looking at it seriously. But we just need to go down the compliance route first to
Yeah.
make sure that we can adhere to everything that we set out to do at the beginning. So we're going through the ISO 27001. We're also going through the massive GDPR program as well at the moment, and we have our consultants just checking that. Whether it's going to be compliant because clearly we're dealing with some of the largest organizations, some of them are banks, and they don't like the use of AI on data, so we've got to be very careful. But
Yeah.
that would be great if it started, found them, identified them, reached out to them, which is entirely possible. But we just want to make sure we're compliant.
But it sounds as though the idea itself is evolving. You started with something that you thought, well, this is what it's going to do and this is how it works. And then clients coming back to you and saying, well, can you do this and can you do that? And now you're looking at how you can do that within a sort of
Yeah,
compliant manner. So the idea is evolving as well. What
yeah,
sort of team have you put around you, Alex? And it
yeah.
sounds like this is a very serious project. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. I mean, so the one thing I've done recently is sort of is change the structure of the team, but also bring in some more experts within AI as well. Um, Initially, we had a team of developers, full stack developers, and a head of data and analytics, and also had some people in the background that were kind of a research element. So the research team also kind of help keeping a lot of data up to date. But more recently, I've hired some specialists in AI because I think the use of AI is going to help us advance our platform very, very rapidly. So I've hired some specialist AI engineers now, which have kind of really transformed the way we look at development and how we deploy our changes as well. And that's really helped us because, we are getting requests from clients, on a weekly basis to say, could you do this and could you do that? And actually, you don't want this to kind of grow arms and legs. You want to fit it within a container and making sure that it's good at what we say we're going to do.
Yeah,
Actually, the small changes using AI are really easy to deploy. So that's really where my skill set's gone to now is hiring AI engineers,
right.
rather than just full stack developers, which is what it was initially.
Yeah, that's an interesting development. It sounds like there's some significant money behind this project. Is it self-funding, or is it something that you've looked for investors to come into, or have you got this up and off the ground? It sounds like you've got quite a sizable team,
Yeah, so
an expensive team as well.
yeah, and expensive. Yeah, yeah, and we're a distributed team. So we're a distributed team across the globe, right? So we have people from Ukraine, we have people from India and in other parts of Asia as well as Europe. We're pre-seed effectively. So we've had some self funds put into it as well as we've got a sort of a small investor community as well. So we're pre-seed, we're revenue generating, and we'll probably be in a position where. Yeah, ideally we don't take additional funding. However, we've been approached a number of times now from early stage investors that might want to sort of put some money in.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing we would look at in that instance would be to sort of scale it a bit in terms of locations and
Yeah.
different geographies, etc.
Okay.
But I do feel that we've got a little bit of a journey to go on in the next sort of 2, 3 months to make sure that we've absolutely got a scalable
Yeah.
platform. Rather than it being 100 users, it needs to be 1,000 users and then 10,000.
Yeah.
And we need to keep making sure that those things are in place before we kind of really go for it.
And to pick up on your point a few minutes ago about working within a framework as well, so it doesn't grow its own arms and legs, but it
Yeah.
has some degree of definition, which must be a challenge in itself, given the nature of the work that you're doing
Yeah.
and the whole AI concept. Right?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think the biggest challenge is, and certainly with most startups, I think if people, you'll talk to people that, that have grown startups as well, you've got to pivot. You have to pivot. You set out for it to look like this and to feel like this. And then suddenly you kind of realize that actually it's more challenging environment or, whatever else it might be, and we've been through iterations of the pricing structure, how many licenses people can buy, and what it does. So we've had to pivot and turn as well. So it's not just a sort of it definitely isn't a linear approach to business. But we do make sure that it doesn't grow arms and legs outside of what we set out the platform to do, which is be very good at succession planning and talent pooling. We don't want to create a sort of this marketing outreach company, this, kind of ATS type environment. We just want to stick to what we're good at the moment. And, the
Right.
reason we've done that is because there's such a niche in the market for this, and there's a void of platforms that don't provide this, and hopefully we can fill that void.
That, from a business perspective, from other business owners who might be watching this podcast in the future, from a business perspective, you found your niche, you found your opportunity.
Mhm.
You've obviously transitioned from a business that was already established and doing what it was doing.
Mhm.
It feels from what you're saying, it sounds as though quite a fair bit of planning went into this transition into the new business. What advice would you give to other people that can see these opportunities but are kind of hesitating maybe on leaping out of their comfort zone into something new based on your own
Yeah.
experiences?
Yeah, no, 100%. And actually, you know what? This isn't the first time I've done this, and it really is. And I talk to many other founders as well, and actually, we all go through this. We all go through this journey
Yeah,
of, you have an idea, you've got to test it. So you talk to people, you understand whether there's a need for it, and and it's not just one or two people.
yeah,
You've got to talk to dozens of people to see, is this something, do you get, would there be value in this before you kind of even start on that journey?
yeah,
But I think everybody goes through this journey, and I talk to founders, today is, the day you think you've got this sort of thing nailed, and it's going to be this, and it's going to be great, and people are going to buy it, and then suddenly you realize actually it's a lot more challenging environment for you. Actually, we need to twist or turn this product or this service, this solution to kind of fit in line with what people want.
yeah,
And you go up and down like this, you really do, and you have to keep turning it, to sort of fit in line with what's going on.
yeah,
Um, and you always have fear and doubt. That's always going to be there. and you get these euphoria moments, and then you get these wow, what am I doing moments. But I think if you've got courage and your conviction,
Yeah.
you've tested it, but be prepared to pivot, be prepared to change, be prepared to listen to what the market might be telling you and adapt accordingly.
Courage, conviction, be prepared to pivot, be prepared
Yeah,
to change. Yeah,
exactly.
it's certainly
Yeah.
interesting. What's been your biggest challenge and what are you most proud of in terms of getting this project up and off the ground?
Well, I think I mean, my background has been professional services. So worked with some of the world's largest organizations, and we sold them professional services. So it was a time and material element to what we were doing.
Yeah,
And so kind of pivoting from that to, creating a SaaS software platform, which is completely unique. And I even talked to clients. I talked to a client today and they're like, wow, nobody else is doing this. Why did you choose that? And then we talked through it and he's like, that's brilliant. I totally get that. So I'm really proud of doing something that is, from more of the sort of into more of the physical environment. So it's an application, it's a software product, very different model to the one I'm used to before. So I think that's been an achievement for me. And also looking at the development of the platform and also the development of the team that's gone into this and how we've seen those guys grow as well.
yeah,
Biggest challenge, Gavin, and I think, um, the power of your network is vast, but never ever rely on your network to help you with what you're trying to do. Whilst they might be encouraging for you, you can sort of think, okay, great, I've got this powerful network, and I'm connected to, whatever it is, 7,000 people that are in that kind of space in my genre. You can't rely on that either. So I think, you sometimes go into these things thinking, well, I'm connected to 7,000 HR and talent professionals. Surely they're going to want to buy the product. And then you kind of realize that actually it's a challenge, and, they're not quite as ready to come forward as perhaps you'd have liked them to have been.
yeah,
And so that's been a challenge, and having to kind of, then sort of kind of almost reinvent yourself in a different market as well, which has been a challenge. But the fact is, when you're a founder, you're a finance director, you're a marketing director, you've got to be the sales director as well, because if you can't sell it, no one else can. And
yeah.
so, that's been sort of, a big challenge wearing all those hats.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you on the point about the sales. I think marketing plays a key part as well. And I was having a conversation with somebody earlier about they're talking about the tools they have available. And I say, well, look, it really starts with what's your business objective and who's your target audience and where do you find them? And quite often, I would imagine, when you're technically embedded in a project such as this, as you are, you're really
Mm.
excited about how things are going to work and the sort of the AI generation and all that sort of stuff behind it. And this other side of the business also needs to get a look in, which is to find your market and
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
and sell to them. Yeah,
100%. Yeah, and actually, do you know what? I think that it's fair to say that, I've always been, what you might call an early adopter. I've always been really keen to kind of look at new technologies and see how they can kind of advance your life.
yeah,
What I've noticed in the last, I would say probably since about December, is this just absolute surge of solutions that are available out there to help you, save time, save money, automate your process, da da da. There's a number of things, and we're one of those platforms, right? We help do that as well. And actually, you have to devote time to your day to looking through those solutions, because there are going to be some solutions there that are going to be absolute game changers for you, whether it's creating content, whether it's designing a website for you, whether it's automate outreach, whatever it might be. There's some fantastic tools in there. And I think every founder has got to keep an eye on that new technology that's coming through as well, because the pace of which AI is changing our market at the moment is incredible, and I've not seen anything like it. And I've been through the dot-com boom and everything else. I've
yeah,
not seen anything like this.
yeah.
So you've got to keep up to date with it.
There's a vitally important message in there. And you've described yourself as being on the leading edge, early adopters, and that's fantastic. But you are in a traditional industry, and so many people in traditional industries, from recruitment, executive search, accountants, lawyers, etc., don't seem to have woken up to
Yeah,
the revolution that's happening under their feet.
yeah,
So I'm delighted that you have, and that you're in
thank you.
such an exciting space.
Yeah,
Alex, thank you for your time today. It's
no,
been
pleasure.
fascinating talking to you.
Nice to see you.
All the best for the future.
Take care. Thanks, Gavin.